I'm so excited for this episode of In Between the Pages with James Lott Jr. Of course, I'm James Lott Jr. here at JLJ Media because it's almost one of those, I get to have these kind of full circle moments or like later moments where something that I liked or someone I grew up with or whatever, and then later I get to talk to them or talk about it. Chocolat was such a wonderful book. First of all, it was a great book, and I read the book back in the late '90s. And then the movie came out. Of course, Johnny Depp and everybody was in that. You know about that. But I read that book years ago, and I have it here. So I was trying to find it. It's in one of these. So I have so many books, and I love books, obviously. Um, that is all well worn too. And it was such a huge hit, and it hit kind of culturally too. All these years later, the writer decides to write an origin story for Vivian. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. So when it came across my desk, which is this email now, but when it came across my desk, I was like, yes, I want Joanne Harris on my show. I want her on my show. It says, send me the book. And they generously did. Joanne Harris, like, you guys, she's here. You can look right behind me. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, it's lovely to be here, James.
So congratulations. First of all, congratulations. And as we're recording this, it's coming out in a month, a little less than a month. It's coming out. So if you're watching it later, it's out now, or you can get it for pre-order, the whole thing. We'll say about that at the end, what to do. But we're gonna go in between the pages of the book. My first question is: first of all, I loved it. I was telling her before we came on, it's a true origin story. It's a true prequel. I'm just letting you know it leads up to. I mean, it totally with it, everything. I'm not gonna give too much away, but it totally gives you, it fleshes her out. So I want to ask you, what made you decide to go back into that world and actually flesh her out and give her story?
Well, it's been 26 years since that first book came out.
Yes.
And when I wrote it, I was a mother with a young child, and I hadn't even really considered the fact that I could give up my day job teaching to be a full-time writer.
Okay.
And so I was a very different person, and I had a slightly different voice. And so I wrote Vianne as, again, a mother with a small child because I could understand that scenario.
Yeah.
And since then, over 26 years, she has followed me, and we've followed the same kind of trajectory through life. And I've written three more books about her.
Yeah.
One is The Lollipop Shoes, where she's the mother of a young teenager. And then there's The Strawberry Thief. She finally ends up with The Strawberry Thief, where she's the mother of two children, one of whom has left home and the other has just started to move away. And I thought, she and I have followed the same path in motherhood for all these years. And sometimes when you reach a certain stage in life, it's sometimes more important to look back to where you came from rather than try to move on. And so because I knew so little about Vianne before Chocolat, because actually Vianne doesn't know all that much about herself, I thought, well, maybe this is the time to write her origin story. And then maybe I will feel better in terms of moving on, or maybe I'll be able to move into the story of her daughters who have their own stories to tell. So who knows what's going to happen next. But I thought it was important at this point to go back to Vianne before she was Vianne.
Yeah. And what's okay, so I think this is amazing. So the question I want to ask you though is, so because you waited, there's a gap between that first story and this, how is your approach to her different?
Well, you know what? I didn't realize it was going to be so tricky
Ooh.
going back to a previous iteration of Vianne, because we're not the same person at
Oh,
all, but we have so many things in common. And I think we've become similar to each other as the years have gone by, as old friends sometimes do find that they have more in common than they did before. But I've had to unwind all that. I've had to remember every time I've had her open her mouth, I've had to say to myself, wait a minute, she doesn't know this yet. She hasn't learned this yet. She hasn't met this person yet. She is not that person. And so I tried to, while retaining her voice, which I can hear very well, I tried to make it a younger, less experienced voice, maybe a more abrasive voice, a voice of somebody who is maybe less socially adept
right.
than the Vianne we think we know. And so I thought, okay, what did I sound like at 21? Okay, maybe I'll start with that, this sort of what you are at 21, because it's such an interesting time to be alive. You are at the same time firmly able to believe that you can do anything,
Yeah.
but you're also a mess of insecurities and you're still trying to find out who you are. So I tried to make it that kind of voice, a voice that people would recognize, but it would sound younger.
Well, you did. Well, here's the thing, because it's set in the 90s, also, that's my time period. That's our time period. So so no, for me, because I was saying I was excited about that. I was like, okay, we're going back in time. And
Mhm.
so obviously all the reference, everything in it is gonna be set from that time period, obviously. And I love that she does sound not abrasive is not the word. She just sounds youthful. She just sounds like she's barreling through. I guess that's the best way to put it, right? It's like she's the way she responds to people, the way she talks to people, it is like that. Yeah, I have grandkids who are in their 20s. It's like she sounds like them.
I'm so glad you've said that because I wasn't sure, but I was hopeful that I could try to get back to that voice,
Yeah.
and to make people understand that she makes lots of mistakes
Yes.
because there are lots of things that she doesn't know.
Right. Well, she's supposed to start a business and all that. I mean, I wasn't 21 trying to start a business. I mean, I didn't get to a business till way later in life when I knew a few things, right? Well, I know everything, but I knew a few things for that youthful kind of willfulness that she has and just kind of like determination.
Mhm.
That's the youth right there. We're just like, I'm going to figure something good. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to go
Yeah.
forward this way, right?
I'm going to do this and it's going to be fine,
Yes,
even though it's almost impossible and it's absolutely not going to be fine. But I hope that readers will know that she can survive this because most of them will know already where she's headed.
right. No, that's what I'm saying. So I knew that too. So I was like, but it was exciting. So I went to about home. When it comes to stuff like this, it's kind of fun because you already have a dot to connect later. So to me, the fun part was finding out things we don't know about her. And
Yeah.
going, oh, and there's stuff in here. There's stuff in here. Joanne puts it in here. Am I giving it away? But that's so for you, that's another thing for you. You're not just only going back, trying to find the voice. How did you decide to put in what you put in, so to speak? You get what I'm saying without giving away.
I know exactly what you mean. It was that again was a bit tricky because I was still finding my way. I didn't know those things about Vianne before I wrote this
Right.
book. I knew there was some unanswered questions about her.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did she get to travel with her mother for such
Yeah.
a long time without ever settling down? What's behind that? What is her mother running from, if anything? Or does her mother have mental issues and is she running from them? Um, Vianne doesn't know much about her mother, and so neither does the reader. So I wanted to bring a little more about that because Vianne's mother is a very important character in her life. She is the one who's determined Vianne's trajectory and the way Vianne approaches things. And her magic, if we want to call it that, comes from her mother. But her cooking comes from somewhere else. And I wanted to answer that question. Where does she learn all this stuff about cooking, about chocolate, if her mother never cooked a meal and she never ate chocolate as a child?
Right. And that's interesting too, because it's like because chocolate had that mystical element in it. And I say mystical, I guess that's the best way to put it, because there was like it felt like there was magic in the making, right? So I was wondering if you were gonna put that in this book. Because it had to come from so because I was curious where it come from too. And so I was like, is she gonna do that when I was reading it? And well, yeah, you do it, but that means it's so how is that fine line too, or is that or has it been a through line for all the kind of books? Is that there is a kind of a magic element in there?
Oh yes, there's definitely a magic element in there, but it's not a splashy kind of magic, if you like. It's not the magic of Latin incantations.
No,
It is a domestic magic which comes from the heart
yes,
rather than from some kind of sense of the occult. And what I wanted to do with those books was to walk the line between the fantasy and the fairy tale that we all know and we were all brought up with, the idea that there are witches and that they have powers, um, but also the idea that magic is something that comes from within, that is everywhere, that we can access. And everybody knows somebody with what we call charm. And it's interesting because the language of magic is full of words like charm and glamour and charisma and enchantment. And these words that on the one side belong to the fairy tale And on the other side are perfectly legitimate descriptions of human beings. We all know somebody who has charm, who when they walk into a room, just everything stops and people look at them. And it's not necessarily even about the way they look, it's something about their personality that changes the air. And so I wanted to suggest that about Vianne, and the idea that she isn't special or chosen in that way, that she has chosen to be this way because of the way she connects with the people around her.
I think it's why Chocolat did so well because it wasn't fantastical. It was very rooted in reality. It was rooted in closeness, your tribe, the village, food, chocolate. Obviously, I mean that's obviously that. But you know what I mean? Like it wasn't because it just wasn't. It was rooted in, in some ways your grandmother may be magical to you because she would go in the kitchen and whip up. I had a grandmother who would say, "Okay, I could take some cornmeal, some ketchup, and a spoon or whatever. I mean, I just like make a whole 3-course meal. Like it seemed like magic. And I don't know what she did in the kitchen. I wasn't in there with her. I know what she was doing. I'm sure more stuff was added in there. But the point was, it's like she whipped it all up, right?
Absolutely right. Yes, because magic and cooking are not a million miles apart. You take these ingredients, you do something to them. We don't quite exactly always know what it is.
Right.
And then something comes out of the other end that makes people feel happy or that changes the way that they see the world just for that day. And it means so much to different people. There is the food that links us together as individuals, as friends, as families. There's the language of food and culture. My mother's French, and one of the ways she hung on to being French, living in the north of England, was through cooking. And so every time she went into the kitchen to make something, she would say, "This dish belongs to your grandmother, your great grandmother, your Aunt Simone, your Uncle John." And these were people I barely knew. Some of them had actually died, but they were there in the room in these dishes that she cooked. And so she used cooking to bring the family together, even though they were apart. And so that there are all these aspects, these emotional aspects of cooking and food, quite apart from the fact that, it is a transformational process, quite literally. And so I wanted to suggest that that too is a kind of magic and one that anybody can access.
Well, you're speaking my language because that said grandmother was Creole, so from Louisiana. So French, obviously heavily influenced down there. And she would say, "Uncle Pierre, this was his dish," or "This was," and so And you're right. It's really interesting when you live somewhere. I guess she moved to California later, so I grew up with all that food from her time in California. I've been to Louisiana and I've done all that, but I'm saying, but when she was here, you're right. When you're transplanted out of the home country or wherever you try to preserve it, right? You preserve it through food.
Of course. And if you get it right, the first spoonful will take you
Oh,
home wherever you are.
yes, yes, yeah. That's very, very, very true. Yes, because I've had a dish, whatever dish it was, whatever, and you're like, oh yes, it's exactly how I remember it. It's exactly how and you're transformed. You feel
Of
better,
course, it's a very powerful force. And if that isn't magic, then what is it?
right? Um, so when you describe Vianne for this book, this basically would be like book one for her before we get to Chocolat. How do you describe her at this time period? How do you describe her? If someone asks you.
Well, she's 21. She has just stepped off the plane from New York, where she's scattered her mother's ashes in the Hudson River.
Yeah,
She has no money. She
right.
has no real skills apart from her human skills. She's got no job. She's in the very early stages of pregnancy and she doesn't know what to do. So she has a lot of choices, but she is not sure how to take them or how to approach them. She has the possibility of a new life without her mother. It's the first time she's been alone because her mother has always traveled with her, has always determined what they did, how long they stayed, what possessions they had, if they were allowed to have any at all. But she is capable. She's been capable of looking after herself for a long time because even as a small child, she was able to source things like food and where to shower and where to sleep and these sort of things. So she's a survivor. She hasn't had any formal education, but she's read a lot. Um, and she has gathered together little scraps of her understanding of the world, geography, through menus, through little bits and pieces that she carries around with her as a memory of where they've been. But she's completely tabula rasa. She can't cook. She doesn't have any cooking skills because they have never had a home with a kitchen. They've never cooked meals except what you could cook in a kettle in a hotel room. But she is full of determination and she will not take no for an answer. So the first thing she does is talk herself into a job as a cook in an old bistrot in the old quarter of Marseille, run by a grumpy old guy called Louis Martin, who gives her as a test. And her survival there is dependent on her passing the test to cook a dish from his dead wife's cookbook.
Yeah.
It's his most precious possession. It's full of his Margot's recipes. They're very dear to him. He cooks them every day for his clients in the bistrot. And the first one she's supposed to cook for him is just very easy. It's the easiest thing in the world. Everybody in Marseille knows how to make this. It's bouillabaisse.
Oh,
The
yeah.
thing is, isn't from Marseille. It is absolutely not the easiest dish in the world to cook. She doesn't even know what some of the fish look like, but she has to pass this test of endurance and of character. And I mean, the way I wrote it, I was thinking about those scenes in the old samurai movies that I loved when I was a teenager, where the old samurai agrees to take on the student, but all he has to do is understand the way of the sword. He's not allowed to touch the sword. So
Yes.
Vianne's allowed to hold the wooden spoon, but she can't touch anything else. She just has to listen and feel and intuit. And so eventually, obviously, she passes the test and she's able to move in. But it's tricky.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to pick something you're not familiar with, and in life, just in life, to pick something you're not familiar with. Sometimes not necessity, but then becomes your world, your passion, your source. It's very interesting that happens to everybody. I mean, sometimes it happens to people where you're like, I didn't mean to get into this, and oh, I'm in it, and oh, this is exactly what where I should be, right? Like this is like where I should be.
Exactly.
It happens all the time. I know I like her, and I think, the same with the movie later. I like her, and I think she's a character that a lot of folks can relate to, and whether you're a man or a woman, I think anybody can relate. Just anybody just trying to start out there and especially just trying to just get a life going. Because for you as a writer, this is very. I mean, the world was your oyster because you knew you had a. So you have a point because you have the book in front of it, but in between there, you could have went any direction you wanted. You could have. I mean, I'm. How do you break down those choices of like, I'm gonna go this way and not this way? Is it as you're writing? Does the writing take you there, or do you outline it? Because we go deep into kind of the weeds of this. How do you do
I
that?
think it's very difficult sometimes to make those decisions in a kind of impartial way. So what I tend to do is I try to get the character as strong in my mind as possible. And then I follow the character's instincts. Rather than trying to create a plot around a character and trying to force the character down certain roads, I get the character to talk a little, to talk to herself, to talk to the reader, to talk to other people in the story. And then I think, okay, what would she do next? How would she proceed? How would she deal with this problem? And usually, I trust the character to get it right, because if you write a person and they sit up and they start to become real and to make their own decisions, then you wrote a well-rounded character rather than a pawn that is going to follow your game.
Okay, that makes sense. That actually totally makes sense. That's the beauty of writing. That's the beauty of writing. I love that. Are you a solitary kind of writer? Are you like give me quiet in a room by myself? Or are you like you write when you feel like it? Or you write with anybody around you? Like what kind of writer are you, Miss Joanne?
Well, because I was writing for 15 years when I was a teacher, I have never needed ideal circumstances to write. I used to write on my laptop when I was supervising in the classroom, when
Wow.
there was silence there. I used to write on the train. I would write at little kind of moments that just added together in the week. Now I've got a writing shed. I have potentially ideal writing circumstances, but I can manage in hotel rooms, on planes, pretty much anywhere. Ideally, I like to be on my own. I like it to be quiet because part of my process is reading aloud, and I read everything aloud several times as I'm going along because it helps. It's a very valuable editorial tool. It helps to get me into the headspace. So I do that a lot, and so I don't want to be doing that in public places and sounding crazy to people. So it's quite nice to have my own space. But
Ah,
also, I mean, to me, the biggest part of my process is scent because I've always found scent very, very evocative. And because I write a lot about scent and taste, I found that one of the best methods for me for getting into the headspace is using the same scent all the time when I'm writing a certain book. So I will go into my shed or wherever I am, and I will spritz the scent that belongs to that book. And it brings back the content and the memories and the voice of that book. So when I was writing Chocolat, I used a Chanel scent. So I've been using a different Chanel scent with the same base for this one, so that it's relative of the voice, but not quite the same voice.
right. Right. It
And
is slightly
and
different.
it's a good portable way of getting into that headspace.
Yeah.
So it's a scent which to me is quite evocative, particularly of that period, of the sort of late 80s, early 90s, that kind of time. And so it has a lot of patchouli, a lot of sheep in
Oh
it,
yeah. Oh, that was
kind of
good.
chocolatey bass notes. It's nice. And to me it's right. It conjures that period of time. So I mean, I know some authors that have these long processes where they have to do an hour's yoga before they start and light a special scented candle. That would not work for me, and especially not the yoga. But spritz a scent, you're there in 30 seconds. It's great. It's a time-saving device.
Love it. Oh my goodness, that's very true. I love it. But now I have to ask the obvious question. Do you eat chocolate while you're doing these books?
I actually don't.
I had a feeling you didn't. I was gonna I'm gonna ask this question. I have a feeling she doesn't. That's
I
what
don't have to eat chocolate all the time when I'm writing about chocolate. In fact, sometimes I think it gets a little too much if I do. I mean, I like chocolate and I do eat chocolate, but I don't need to eat chocolate to be able to describe what chocolate feels like. Because actually, when you think about it, describing tastes, just like describing scents, is very difficult because all you can really do is compare it to another taste
that's true.
or another scent.
Yeah.
So what I do instead, I don't do that. I don't really talk about tastes and scents. I describe them as feelings and memories and associations, because those things to me are much more powerful than saying this tasted salty or this tasted bitter or this tasted sweet,
You can
because
say
the vocabulary is just not there.
right. You can say
Instead, you need an emotional vocabulary.
I love that. It's
Try
like
and convey what it means to you.
yeah, because I was saying you say this tastes like my childhood on the shore,
Exactly.
or this tastes like Granny's kitchen on a summer day. Like I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I like that. I get what you're saying. Because it does, it automatically takes you right back to where which food does. It takes you back. Or food, but anything, food, books, movies, TV, music. There is more feeling in it than people realize. You just say like you hear a song, a note to a song, it takes you right back to where that it could have been prom in high school, or you were a child, playing in the car, like oh yeah, it takes you right back to that spot. You feel something.
Exactly. Which is also a kind of magic, isn't it? It's a sort of portable magic, like all of memory.
Yeah, that's so true. That's very true. Um, was there any trepidation? I mean, you've written a book that's coming out, but was there any trepidation in going back to her so young and creating a whole backstory?
Always. I mean, there's always trepidation. Whatever I write, I always feel that I'm taking a risk. I mean, actually, it's important to me to take a risk because if I feel that a book is risk-free, then I think, well, why am I writing it? Why am I even going there? Because if there isn't enough risk, then there's not enough that's new for me to talk about. So I had to be in a place where it felt intuitively right to think of Vianne at that age. And it also needed to be a time when I knew something more about her than I had when I wrote the last book. So yeah, it felt risky, but in a good way.
Yeah, I like that. Well, are we gonna get a prequel of the mother anytime soon?
Ah, do you know what? We may well, at some point, we may well get something about her mother because, her mother's been so important in her
Yes.
life, and she doesn't know anything about her.
Oh,
Really not. Even now, even after Vianne, where we do learn a few things, we
right.
still don't know much about her. And the reason we don't is that Vianne doesn't.
No.
Now, that may change,
Right. Well,
or a story may come.
yeah, there's many ways you could do that. Obviously, there's many ways you can conjure that up, and there's all kinds of tropes in books where you like she meets somebody from her mother's past, or anything could happen, or you could make up something totally different.
We
And
could, absolutely.
yeah, here's your story. Just like here's your story, and that's it. So there you have a plethora of choices in terms of telling your mom's story. That's really
Oh,
interesting.
yes, there are lots of possibilities. And I feel very connected to Vianne. I feel that, we've lived the best part of our lives together. She's not going to leave me alone now. She's going to be back at some point. There's going to be something else that she wants to say.
And so I just want to say congratulations. This book is phenomenal, folks. Vianne by Joanne Harris. It says it's out September 2nd. So
Yes,
it's out for pre-order right now. Isn't it right now on pre-order on Amazon? Is it out there yet or no?
I'm
Yeah.
sure you can pre-order it. Yes, it's been out in the UK for a while,
Yeah.
but it's out in the US on September the 2nd.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
pre-order on Amazon.
go to Amazon. Just go there. I mean, run, don't walk. Well, actually, just go on your phone, tablet. Get it. I'm telling you. I'm telling my friends who are huge fans of Shotgun. I'm gonna tell them. I'm gonna show this interview to them and tell them to buy the book. It's really good. You see it behind me. If you're listening to us, I'm holding the book up behind me. Thank you, Joanne, for being on the show. You're amazing.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. You're welcome back anytime. Any other books, anytime. Especially the mother book, we do that. But the daughters, I am curious. The daughters, that's a good one too. Very excited. I want to read that also. We support authors. That's what we do here at JLJ Media. It's books aren't going nowhere. I don't know, whatever you thought you heard, they're not going. People are reading in record numbers, whether it's through Audible, whether it's Kindle, paperback, hardback. Books are in still. They're not. People are liking to read. They want to escape. And this channel, we support authors of all sizes, from indie to big names. We support everybody. To write is not easy, so I always support authors who get down and finish a book. You think these they're giving birth to something, so we support that here. We also always say at the end, we never support banning books. Books should be for everyone who wants to see them and read them. That's kind of our point here on JLJ. We take a hard stand on that. But it's all about reading, and that's what this show is on. It's on Facebook, In Between the Pages. That's our Facebook page, JLJ Media everywhere. I'm James Lott Jr. everywhere, and we'll see you next time.